Good evening, Who Dat Nation. I am Bob Rose, sitting in the shadows of my living room, with the silhouette of an autographed Jim Everett jersey in my background. And I want to welcome you to episode 1 of the Bayou Blitz reboot. And I'm joined by my new co-host and fellow SI.com and Saints News Network writer, Brendan Boylan. How are you tonight, Brendan? I see you're in the light.
I was going to say I'm doing a little bit better than you, losing power right before the show. There you go. You look like something out of a horror film now. But I'm doing great, man. I'm just excited to get the Bayou Blitz kind of rebooted, get some great Saints content out throughout the remainder of the offseason into the preseason. Obviously, training camp is now. Rookies reported yesterday. So it's a real exciting time. For all of Who Dat Nation, I'm just excited to, like I said, provide great content and be able to move forward in a podcast you and I have talked about doing for what seems like years now.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, folks, for those that aren't familiar, again, Brendan and I have been writing along with Kyle Mosley and John Hendricks for the Saints News Network for a few years now. Brendan and I have done the network's live draft broadcasts for the last 3 seasons. And last season, we gave you a live pregame and live halftime edition, bridged edition. We will be doing that again. And we're just excited to get this broadcast. Kyle Mosley and I started the Bayou Blitz back in 2018, just prior to that draft. And we ran it for about 2 years pretty consistently. And then, life became life. And for the last year or so, we've been pretty inactive. Kyle is neck deep in other projects in addition to being our editor at the Saints News Network. So Brendan and I, like Brendan said, we got to talking, and we decided the Bayou Blitz seemed pretty popular before, so we decided it'd be a great idea to reboot it. And man, we have a terrific guest for you tonight. Jordy Hultberg from the Jordy Holtberg Show on 103.7 and 104.1 The Game out of Lake Charles and Lafayette, Louisiana. I've been honored to be a regular guest on Jordy's Tuesday shows. He's on Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time. But I've been honored to be with him pretty regularly on Tuesdays. And there isn't going to be a better guy as far as knowledge and personality to join us. And we definitely welcome him to the Bayou Blitz family.
Well, let's go ahead and bring him in. Jordy Holtberg to the Bayou Blitz. How you doing, Jordy?
I am doing well. I'm honored to be appearing on this. I'm from New Orleans, and I have been a Saints fan forever. I was in Tulane Stadium when John Gilliam returned the opening kickoff against the Rams, and we thought, oh my gosh, he scored a touchdown. The Saints are going to be the greatest team ever. We're going to win every game. We're going to go to the Super Bowl every year. Well, of course, then we were like Moses in the desert for all those years. I was there when Tom Dempsey kicked the field goal. It was a strange story at Tulane Stadium. My dad and he always took me to the games, and always we would walk up the stadium to go out to the ramp, to walk down, to get outside and go. For some strange reason, we said, let's just go down the steps this time. And we stopped, and we saw Dempsey kick the field goal. So I've seen all the good, the bad, the ugly from day one to now. And it's great to see the Saints in an era where they are reputable. They are a good team, a well-run organization. And I'm just great to be. I've got a question for y'all, though. Does this name, I know the Bayou State and all that, Blitz, does that describe how you all feel like defense should be played, like blitz, put pressure on the quarterback at all times?
Oh, you better believe it. I mean, as an athlete myself and as a coach, I had that aggressive mentality. That's one of the reasons that made me fall in love with Sean Payton so quickly. When Kyle and I were brainstorming names and we got our families involved, we ultimately settled on the Bayou Blitz. We're hoping that the name will indicate an aggressive cutting show. And there we go. I got lights. Jordy, it wouldn't be me without technical difficulties.
Oh, technology is something, man. It is something. Thank God
But
thank God y'all made this easy for me, because all I had to do was push a button, and that's about all I can do.
Well, that's Brendan, Jordy. Brendan's our youth, our pretty, and our technical knowledge. I bring experience and grouchiness.
Dude, that is called job security, man. You just keep setting the technology up, and you got a gig forever.
Oh man. Hey, I grew up with it in my hands. It's nothing I ever really had to learn. It was just thrown in my hands, and I was able to kind of go and roll with it. And thankfully, I've had some great stops along the way to pick up a little bit more knowledge on that. But Jordy, while we have you, I think one of the biggest things in my profession and your profession as well is when you jump into finding yourself on radio in broadcasting, it's a little bit of a different journey for everyone, and not everyone gets to end up doing it for your hometown team or the team you rooted for growing up. So what was that experience and that timeline like for you?
Well, I tell you, I go back a ways. I was fortunate enough I'm from New Orleans. I went to De La Salle High School. I got a basketball scholarship to LSU. And after college, I was going to go to law school. I was drafted in the 5th round by the LA Lakers, believe it or not. But I had, I'd run its course. I was ready to get on with something different. And so I was going to go to law school. My head coach, Dale Brown, I woke up one day and said, I don't want to do that. He said, why don't you come coach? I said, okay, great. 3rd year into coaching, LSU started a very innovative, nobody had ever done it before, pay-per-view network called Tiger Vision. And I went to Coach Brown and said, look, how many coaches do you need on the sideline? Why don't you let me go do television? Nobody knows the team like I do. I'll take care of you. Well, as soon as I said that, bing, he said, great, do it. So Tim Brando and I started on Tiger Vision together. Tim has had a great career since. And from that, I just fell in love with broadcasting, and one thing led to another, which led to another, which led to me doing the New Orleans Hornets NBA games on television with Cox Sports Television. And I did that for about 10 or 11 years. And it got to the point where I was gone. I mean, that's a grind. That is a grind. That's a long year, lots and lots and lots of travel. And I was away from my kids an awful lot. And I finally came to a decision. I said, you know what? It's just not worth it. Somebody approached me about doing a radio show. I said, I've never done radio in my life. I don't know what it is. What do you do? He said, well, they point to you and you start talking. I went, okay, I think I can do that. We'll see. And it's evolved. And I've been doing this now, golly, like 13 years or so. And it's been fun. I get great guests like Bob, very informative. And that's what makes it fun for me. I just couldn't sit there and take phone calls from Johnny off the street and Tom in Thibodaux. No offense to Thibodaux. But I like to get guests that are informed, that are entertaining, that I can have fun with. And so it's 2 hours that go by very, very, very quickly. But to cover the Saints, it's great. Now it's great. I can't imagine what it would have been like 30 years ago. I can't imagine that. But no, it's fun. I enjoy it, and I'm very blessed for it.
Folks, if you're just joining us, welcome to the Bayou Blitz broadcast. We are joined by Jordy Hultberg of the Jordy Hultberg Show on 103.7 and 104.1 The Game. Jordy, I think we can all agree that the Saints had a very successful offseason. But was there anything that disappointed you about the Saints personnel moves, either lack of or questionable moves?
I'm an LSU guy. I really wanted Darrell Williams from the Chiefs. I thought he'd have been a great fit at a position of need. We don't know what's going to happen with Kamara, how long he's going to be out. I have no clue. I have no idea. And they've got a bunch of running backs in there. I've always liked Mark Ingram, despite the fact that he's an Alabama guy. But he's a little long in the tooth. I don't know how much you can count on him. But I thought Darrell Williams would have been an outstanding pickup. But he chased the money, and good for him. He got what he wanted, where he wanted to go. So other than that, I mean, I love the acquisition of the Honey Badger. I like the Jarvis Landry. I hate to keep harping on these LSU guys, but heck, Sean Payton never picked up an LSU guy. For some
Right.
reason, he just wanted to go to Ohio State and get the Buckeyes. But now he's got some. And so other than that, I just think people are underwriting the Saints because they don't have Sean Payton anymore. And I understand that's a big loss. But players got to play. Coaches got to coach. And I like the players that the Saints have. So I think they're underestimating. I hope I'm right.
Mm-hmm. Brendan?
Well, personally, I think for New Orleans, the one position that I wish they addressed a little bit further was linebacker depth. You know, you have one of the best linebackers in the game in Demario Davis. You have a young rising star in Pete Warner. But what are your thoughts on the Saints bringing back a guy like Quan Alexander? Do you see the Saints making a move right here at the turn of training camp to maybe bolster up some of that defense or maybe some other positions of need?
Here we go, another LSU Tiger. I'm a big fan, huge fan of Quan Alexander. And Bob and I have talked about this a lot. I don't know what his status is from an injury standpoint. I don't know anything along those lines. I know that he and Demario Davis seem to gel and play well together, and there's a definite trust in one another there, which I think is very important. I love his speed. I love his sideline to sideline ability, and with the way football's played now, man, you got to cover backside of the backfield. You got to have speed, quickness, and hit with authority, and I think Quan Alexander fits all that. I would love to see him as a part of this team. Now, Bob knows every player at every position, who's drafted, undrafted, how many years left he has on his contract. I don't know all that stuff. I don't go into detail, but I do like Quan Alexander a lot.
Hey, Jordy, you mentioned before about you think that the Saints are undervalued in the national media circles in particular. One reason is obviously the daunting task of replacing Sean Payton, but you got to believe that the quarterback position also comes into play. And you've asked me multiple times how I feel about Jameis Winston's fit for the team. Well, it's my turn to fire at you, my friend. Do you think Jameis Winston is the right quarterback for this team?
Well, we're going to find out. And I think he's got a year to prove it. I still don't think there's enough. Well, the first year he sat on the bench and watched and learned. Then when he got in and had his chance when Drew retired, played a couple of games, looked good. Then he gets hurt, so we missed him the rest of the time. The things that I do like, I like what he has shown from a leadership ability. I like what he has shown of getting players to respond to him, and he seems to really have grasped a hold of that and wants to do it, and that's important from your quarterback. But again, we're going to see what happens when the referees are there and the scoreboard's on, and it all comes down to wins and losses. Can he? It's like Brian Kelly said, the coach at LSU, when he was asked about his quarterback situation, and I think if you asked every coach this is what they'd want from a quarterback. One, protect the football. Don't give it to the other team. Two, get the ball to your playmakers. However it needs to be done, short, long, intermediate, quick, whatever, get it to your playmakers. And every now and then, that quarterback's going to have to make a play or two on his own, which means nobody's open. He has to avoid the rush and get you 5 yards to move the chains, get you 3 yards to move the sticks, whatever it takes. And that's what we're going to find out about Jameis Winston. And if he can do those three things and do them consistently, there'll be a lot more wins than losses. And then he's going to get that contract that says he is the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. But it's like I'm from Missouri, man. Show me. I'm the show me state. Show me. Or from New Orleans at Mardi Gras. Show me something, mister. And I hope he does. I really hope he does. Jury's out.
Jordy, you've been a part of the New Orleans sports scene for a long time. You've seen teams that have a lot of hype around them. Is this the most talented Saints team, like top to bottom, that you've seen?
I don't know about that, but I think it's got more talent and is more being neglected than other Saints teams. I'll put it that way. But look, there's so much changes. How good is Michael Thomas going to be?
Right.
I mean, he's been away from it for a long time. When he was there, when he was right, he was unstoppable. If he's that type of player again, great. How long is Alvin Kamara going to be out?
Mm-hmm.
That's critical. That's critical to Jameis Winston's progression. Those two players will mean everything to Jameis Winston. So I do believe there's a lot of talent on this club. I love their offensive line. I still believe Taysom Hill's going to be a better tight end than a lot of people think he can be. I think he'll be a matchup nightmare for defenses. I really do. And I think he's big enough to block. You don't have to hold a block that long with the speed and talent that the Saints have. Just get your body in front of him. He's big enough, strong enough. But who's going to guard him? Who's going to guard him out there on a pass route? I think he's going to be terrific. So I like this. I love the Saints in the secondary. I love their pass rushes. I think Marcus Davenport is going to finally, that light bulb's going to go on, and he's going to be a consistent pass rusher, and I think he's going to be terrific this year. Of course, this is my black and gold shades coming on now here, so I'm always of the optimistic type. So going back long run to answer your question, is it the most talented? It's tough when you got Drew Brees at quarterback to say this is going to be the most talented team. But I do believe there's more talent than the pundits are giving the Saints credit for. I think this is a playoff team. I don't know if they're better than Tampa Bay. I don't know if they're going to win the division, but I do believe out of 7 teams that get into the playoffs, I think the Saints are one of the top 7 teams in the NFC.
Well put.
You
I
agree?
couldn't agree more. I definitely agree. You know that, and I have a hard time. The three of us are in the media, at different levels. Obviously, Jordy, you're at the top of the mountain, but it's tough for us to take those black and gold colored glasses off. But I think ultimately all of our goals is to look at this team, and when we broadcast, when we write pieces, when we do interviews, you try to be objective and look from an outsider's view. And Brendan, do you believe that this is a playoff team?
I'll put it pretty simple: is New Orleans had the worst receiving corps of anybody in the league last year, and I would argue maybe one of the worst over the last 3 years. If you took the last 3 seasons of the NFL and stacked them against anybody, and that team still was a game out of the playoffs. They started 4 quarterbacks last year, game out of the playoffs. I think that receiving corps went from here to here, and you're getting healthy, and then you get a playmaker and a defensive leader like Tyrann Mathieu, and I think it's a no-brainer that this team should, at least on paper, be a playoff team.
What do y'all equate? How did that team go 9-8? For all the reasons that you just mentioned, is that the Sean Payton factor? And is it because Sean Payton's no longer here? Is that why so many people are saying, "Oh, the Saints got no shot"?
I do think it has a lot to do with Sean Payton, and I think last year was arguably his best coaching job, given the shambles of the team that was around him. But I also think it's a testament to Dennis Allen and that coaching staff. I mean, this defense was literally the best in the league over the last half of the year, and the depth of this team was tested and stretched to the breaking point. But there was it just shows you that there was still enough talent to put together a winning streak down the stretch and finish just literally a hair away from the playoffs.
And let me tell you another factor that I don't think many people give credit to. Got Will Lutz coming back.
Yes, sir.
Valuable commodity. Now the coaching staff can say, okay, well, we don't have to take this chance in this situation. We can settle for 3 because we got somebody that's nearly automatic and didn't have Lutz last year. How many kickers did they have? As many quarterbacks started?
I think so.
Exactly as many, yeah. Bayou Blitz family, if you're just joining us, we are honored to be joined by our special guest, Jordy Hultberg of the Jordy Hultberg Show, 103.7 and 104.1 The Game. Yeah, Jordy, you already touched on a couple of the newcomers, Jarvis Landry, Tyrann Mathieu. Obviously, we know about the 2 first-round picks, Trevor Penning, Chris Olave, and then the safety Marcus May. Which of the new players do you think is going to make the biggest impact, and why?
I hope it's Trevor Penning, to be honest with you, because that is such a vital aspect to the success of an offense. So I hope it's Trevor Penning. I mean, how many touches is Olave going to get? Well, it depends upon is Thomas ready to go? I mean, how much can you spread the wealth? So I'm hoping it's Trevor Penning. I really do. So I'm going to stake my claim on that. He's a big, burly dude, and I think with the offensive line coach and all those around him, I think he has a chance to make an impact, and I'm hoping that he is the most impactful player for this club, because Olave's going to get his, Jarvis is going to get his, Michael Thomas is going to get his, Kamara's going to get his. The only way they get theirs is if Jameis Winston's upright. And so they better have a good offensive line. So that's why I'm hoping Penning is the case. You can't underestimate the experience, the know-how, the ability of Tyrann Mathieu. You can't underestimate that. I want to see this dude. I don't know why I have this feeling, but this guy from Tennessee, that defensive back, I just got a funny feeling he's gonna be he's gonna be a surprise for the Saints this year. I think from everything I've heard, and coaches don't always effuse praise on rookies, but Dennis Allen pointed him out. Taylor, I think, is that his name, Taylor?
Yes, Alontae Taylor.
Yeah, I just got a funny feeling, again, at a very important position on the field with the way football's played. You got to have secondary, and you got to have a lot of them, and they've got to know what they're doing. So I got a funny feeling he's going to be pretty good.
Talking about Dennis Allen, this was a guy who got his first coaching shot years ago in Oakland, and we know how that went. All these years.
Let me stop you on that one. Let me stop you. Bill Belichick, Vince Lombardi, George Halas, whoever you think are the greatest coaches to coach in NFL history, they couldn't win with the team and the lack of talent that those players had. They could. Nobody could. Set up to fail, but you know what? You learn from that kind of stuff, right? So I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, that's a perfect segue to what I was going to ask you. Is you have that experience, though on paper it didn't end too well for Dennis Allen. You come back, you're in Sean Payton's system, coaching under him for as long as he did. How do you think that transition from defensive coordinator, one of the best in the league, is going to translate to him being a full-time head coach for the second time in his career? You
tell Pete Carmichael, hey Pete, you got Sean's notebook? Yeah, I do. Okay, good. You call the offense. Let's not change it up too much. I'll still be in charge of the defense, and we'll be happily married together. It'll be a coexistence. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's pretty smart, to be honest with you. Carmichael, how long has Carmichael been on Sean Payton's hip? For as long as Sean Payton was with the Saints, I believe.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I mean, it'd be foolish not to kind of emulate that. And if Dennis Allen can learn how to delegate like coaches are supposed to, be the CEO, trust your coaches, and just be able to motivate, I think he'll be fine.
Jordy,
about him? Nobody talks about Todd Bowles.
Right.
Tampa Bay. He was just as bad with a team that those aforementioned Hall of Famers couldn't win with either. But everybody, because he's got Tom Brady, who, as Bob always is quick to announce, the Saints have his number. But nobody says anything about Todd Bowles. They all say, well, Dennis Allen, he can't coach. He didn't win this last time. Todd Bowles was equally as bad.
Yep. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Hey, listen, Jordy, you already named Alontae Taylor as far as rookies go, but give us a surprise or two that you could see happening with the Saints. Maybe a young veteran that you see maybe having a breakout year, or is shaking off a draft bust.
I'm going to just follow your lead because you always tell me, look out for this guy, Werner, at linebacker. He's going to be a star. So I'm just going to ride your coattails because I trust your knowledge. And I'm going to say Pete Werner at linebacker because it is another valuable position. They have to stay healthy there. So I'm hoping Werner lives up to your billing. How about that?
We'll keep it right there in terms of guys that could surprise you. I already mentioned Marcus Davenport being a guy who's trying to shake that draft bust title. But how about the guy right behind him that was drafted in the first round just a couple years ago, and Peyton Turner? How do you feel Peyton Turner is going to evolve, whether he's playing alongside Cameron Jordan, whether they go for some crazy third down type of sets where they just have a ton of edge rushers out there? Because I think Peyton Turner and Marcus Davenport, they could be clones of each other in terms of size and skill set.
How many years does Peyton Turner have left on his contract? Do we know? I hope it's a contract year for him.
It isn't. He's still on his rookie deal, as you said. But he has 3 more years left. That's without the 5th-year option.
Oh, well, you know what they say the NFL stands for, not for long. So if you don't produce, you're not going to be there for long. So, look, I trust the Saints' brain trust, Jeff Ireland and Mickey Loomis and those scouts. They seem to do pretty well when it comes to the draft and finding some hidden gems. So they believe in Turner. So I'm going to believe in him as well. He's just, it's different when you play at some schools and that transition to the NFL where you're playing against the best of the best. It takes a while to kind of learn. I don't know what he's like as far as his football acumen and IQ is concerned. Takes some players a little bit longer to get to that comfort zone where they are simply playing. They're not thinking, they're just reacting. And when you react, that brings out the best of you. When you think, you're a half step too slow. And in the NFL, when you're a half step too slow, you're beat. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's got some experience. He did get hurt, but he's back. He says he's ready to go. Show me again. So hopefully, again, a lot of question marks. A lot of things to prove, but again, I'm going to trust the Saints and their ability to scout talent, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that he lives up to the billing as well. You can't have enough of those guys. You got to put pressure. As my old coach said, Nick Saban, he said, it's not about blitzing and tackling the quarterback. It's about affecting the quarterback. You get him to get rid of the football quicker. Can you make him feel uncomfortable in the pocket? Is he hearing footsteps? Those type of things. So you can't get enough of those guys. So I hope Peyton Turner, I hope the light bulb goes off on him as well.
Jordy, I'm going to put you on the sidelines now, hypothetically, and in charge of the offense. You want to protect your passer and keep Jameis Winston upright. Now you talked about Trevor Penning. We know what Ryan Ramczyk can do on the other side. How short a leash, if you were the coach, how short a leash would Cesar Ruiz be on coming into this season?
Like a hiccup. Very short. Look, your job is one thing and one thing only. Keep that quarterback clean. If you can't do that, we're gonna find somebody else. So. I think it's a very, very short leash. What do y'all think?
I couldn't agree more. And you've asked me similar questions in the past. If Trevor Penning develops as quickly as what a lot of us expect him to, then you're sitting on what I think is an outstanding starting quality guard in James Hurst. To me, he's already an upgrade over Cesar Ruiz. Now, I know the NFL is just as much business as it is competition. You're talking about Ruiz, a first-round draft pick, still on a rookie deal. They're going to give him as many chances as possible. But yet, to me, if I'm the coach, I agree with you. I'd have a real short leash knowing that I have a starting quality interior lineman in the way of James Hurst.
Yeah, and who's going to be that Swiss Army knife that can play tackle, can play guard, can play multiple positions? Who is that going to be this year? And because inevitably somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah,
and you know who I'm thinking about because he always gets hurt. So when Andrus Peat goes down, who's going to step in for him? Boy, that's being too cruel. I don't mean that. Andrus, I love you. I hope you're injury-free for the first time in your life. I hope you are. But
Jordy, I love him too when he's on the field, but that
Right.
that has always been the problem with Andrus Pete.
You know what they say? The best ability is availability, and then comes reliability. So, Andrus, come on, dude, come on.
I think to answer your question, though, Drew, I think James Hurst is a perfect answer for that. But a guy that Bob and I were both really high on last year was Calvin Throckmorton, and a guy who's grown a lot. The kid out of Oregon, I think he could be a potential plug-and-play guy at multiple positions on the offensive line. I'm really curious to see how he grows, especially through training camp and the preseason this year, because he's a big-bodied dude that can play tackle and guard.
Every time I hear his name, I think it's like it should be a sitcom or something. It's just got one of those, that last name's got a catchy thing. It should be like a sitcom or something.
Riding with the Throckmortons. I'm all for it in 2022.
Right, Throckmorton. That's something. We all can't have easy names like Rose, Bob Rose. How many times has anybody mispronounced your name? Never.
You know what? You'd be surprised. If I'm on the phone with somebody, I always have to spell it out. Otherwise, it inevitably gets written down or translated as roads, like the one you drive on.
I got you. Okay. Well, look, guys, I hate to eat and run here, but I've got some family duties that I'm responsible for. But I can't thank you enough for having me. And I hope I didn't make the ratings go from super, super high down to middle of the pack here. I hope I didn't, because you guys do a great job. Welcome back, and thank you for having me.
Jordy, you're an honorary member of the Rose family. You know that, and you're certainly a member of the Bayou Blitz family. Listen, man, I hope we can do this again. You've been a blast, fun and knowledgeable as always. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, let me ask you this. I know Sean Payton. I know Drew Brees is the most beloved Saint, right? Who's number two? Who's number two all time?
Brendan?
I'll share my opinion. I think it's Archie Manning, personally.
I was going to say Arch or Ricky Jackson, one or the other.
Okay.
Let's see.
Depends
I
on what
agree with what Jordy said.
Now.
Mm-hmm. Jordy, I agree with what you said. It's got, as far as fan favorite, it's got to be Archie Manning. As far as accomplishments on the field, I agree with Brendan that it's got to be Ricky Jackson. But if you're going pure fan favorite, it's definitely Arch.
Okay, good enough. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordy.
Take care. Love you, my friend.
Take care.
That was Jordy Hultberg. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brendan.
What a first guest.
Yeah, and I mean, he's good. He's going to be hard to top. He's a good friend of mine. Done wonders, for media and just the sports world in the Gulf Coast region. That was Jordy Hultberg, again, of the Jordy Hultberg Show. Folks, you could stream his show Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. It's 103.7 or 104.1 The Game. They're out of Lake Charles and Lafayette, Louisiana. But in this internet day and age, you can look them up anywhere around the world.
Well, I didn't get a chance to ask him, but I had to because he's a basketball guy. I'll have to get him next time. Is Zion finally going to be healthy? What are the Pelicans going to do? That's probably a question for some of our friends over at Pelican Scoop with Sports Illustrated as well. But I think that's going to be a really fun basketball team. It's coming from a guy who roots pretty hard for another team in the NBA. But that's going to be a fun team. I'll have to get his opinions on that at some point. But to continue on with the Saints, Jordy, lots of great information. Just on how he sees the season playing out, some things he was disappointed with last year and in the Saints offseason as a whole. But, Bob, I posed the question to Jordy, is this the most talented Saints team of all time on paper? And while I agree with him, probably not. I think everybody's heads go to 2009 and then our favorite season of all time in 2011. That was one of the most electrifying and fun offenses of all time. I would say on paper, this Saints team is in that upper tier in terms of talent on paper. Now, that might be a little bit of an overreaction because they did get some splash free agents, which is something the Saints don't typically do. But I think this is a really, really talented team. And to what Jordy said, it's a team that's extremely slept on going into this season because of the question marks with a new head coach, because of the question marks towards Jameis Winston, which I love Jameis, so I don't understand
Same.
those question marks. I think he's going to be a really talented guy, but there are a lot of question marks on the Saints. Where do you see the Saints in terms of a talent level, and what are you going to be looking for as training camp begins tomorrow with the veterans?
Listen, as far as talent level, it's tough to compare all-time franchise greats, because this team, like Jordy pointed out, it hasn't done it on the field yet. Having said that, you have a former Pro Bowler in Jameis Winston. You have a Pro Bowler and a multi-time Pro Bowler in Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Ryan Ramczyk. You have a Pro Bowl snub and a Pro Bowl quality player in Eric McCoy, a first-round draft choice in Chris Olave, and an All-Pro kick returner in Deontay Harris. And you even have a multi-Pro Bowler as your backup running back in Mark Ingram. There's a lot of question marks on this team. You got to start with the guard position. Can Andres Pete stay healthy? Can Cesar Ruiz not stink? I'm trying to start out Bayou Blitz with a PG rating. There's a lot of question marks. Jameis, and I love Jameis too. I believe that he is going to show that he is a franchise signal caller. But until he does, all you can go off is talent and potential talent. And that P word, potential, is what gets coaches fired, and it's what gets players on the unemployment line looking for new jobs. Having said that, I think this team has the talent on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, not to mention a couple of Pro Bowl quality kickers in Will Lutz and Blake Gillikin. I'll go further than just saying they're a playoff team. I think that if everything comes together, this team has the potential of being a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the NFC.
The scariest word in sports, potential. I don't know if I'd go as far to say Super Bowl contender, but I certainly think they're a contender to make the playoffs. I think they will make the playoffs. I think they're a team that could go deep in the playoffs. But kind of going back to what you said earlier, this is a team on paper, it looks great. On Madden, some of those are really questionable ratings, and I'll have some write-ups on that. But, Madden-wise, if you want to use that for a comparison, they look great. I mean, look how good some of these guys are. And if I remember correctly, Tyrann Mathieu is the top-rated safety in Madden this year. Demarco Davis is the second highest-rated interior linebacker in Madden this year. Cam Jordan's top 10 on the edge, questionable, should be top 5. But the list goes on and on. This is a super talented team on paper, but they haven't proved anything on the field yet. Like Jordy said, I don't think this is going to be a team that changes too much, even with Sean Payton exiting, because you look at the staff that was retained, and most of those big name guys or guys in high positions of power, if you will, have been on the Payton staff for a long time. I think this is going to be a very vital season for the Saints, though, as well. There comes some pressure because this is going to be the first year where Jameis Winston is truly the heir apparent quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. You don't know what's really going on with Alvin Kamara. Is Michael Thomas going to ever return to that all-pro form? There's a lot of things that are up in the air about that. But before we continue the conversation, we didn't get a chance to talk to all these guys in the comments, Bob. And I forgot, just for a brief second, from how long it's been since we did our show for the draft, we're getting some love out here. People like us. That's good to know sometimes. Sean said he loves when Jordy talks LSU basketball. Like I said, I wanted to ask him some basketball questions. I missed out.
And you know what, Jordy, he is such a great sports guy all the way around, but he undersold his own knowledge and feats in basketball. He didn't just go to LSU and play basketball. He was a 4-year major contributor on a nationally ranked team, including the 1980 LSU Final Four team. So Jordy was a heck of a player, and he I know we're a football show and I'm a football guy, but there is no better guy to go to as far as basketball knowledge than Jordy Hultberg.
Hey, I didn't know he was drafted by the Lakers, so you learn something new every day. Let's see, John Butler, great job by Jordy. I agree. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, digging the bro jersey. Thanks. Delvin signed that one for me. You can't really see it. But he was my first NFL interview back when I was in college. So he sent a jersey to me after that. So Much
Oh,
love.
Delvin's a great personality. We'll have him on our show too. This season, obviously, he's wrapped up in CFL football right now. But I have an autographed copy of his book that my daughter is currently reading, and autographed football card from Delvin Bro too. Delvin is definitely part of the Bayou Blitz family.
Yeah, top-notch guy. Best of luck to those BC Lions, one of the best records in the Canadian League so far this year. Let's see. JGP Jr., good to see you. Bob and Brendan, great to see you guys. It's been too long. Let's see. John said Pro Bowl snub, Demario Davis, when you were listening to snubs. Absolutely. That's a joke at this point. It really is. I think we got everybody, but really happy just to be back. Love interacting with you guys as part of the best part of doing the show live. I've done so many podcasts that are pre-recorded, and it doesn't have the same vibes. It doesn't have the same energy because I'm not able to interact with you guys live, and that's part of the best part of doing the podcast live. But back to it. I'll ask you this question, Bob, is you look at the Saints, you look at the rookies that have reported, you look at some of these young guys that still got stuff to prove. As we talked about, there's a lot of question marks with this team. Give me a bold prediction for a player or two that is really going to stand out to you this season that maybe people aren't keeping their eyes on. Maybe one offense and one defense, if you could.
I'll tell you, I'll go defense first. And I love the additions. I think Alontae Taylor is going to be a heck of a player. I agree with what Jordy said. But the dark horse for me is Demarco Jackson. I loved his film when I was doing my draft breakdowns, it'd be pre-NFL draft. And I had him rated as a late day 2, early day 3 prospect. I was thrilled when the Saints got him in the 5th round. He's not going to overtake Demario Davis, but if you want a player that's a Demario Davis clone in terms of aggression, athleticism, and just overall playing style, you Saints fans, I think you're really going to like Demarco Jackson. I know we're worried about linebacker depth, and include me in that. I would have loved to see the team bring back Quan for at least one more year. But Demarco Jackson has the possibility, if he develops quickly, to really add a lot of depth, a lot of athletic depth to that Saints linebacking core. That's a dark horse for me to watch.
Yeah, I like him as well. He's a little undersized. But as you know, I'm out here in the great state of North Carolina. I did a lot of small D1 football for ESPN back in the day. So anytime I see a North Carolina kid out of a North Carolina small school like App State, and I can't believe it's been as long as it has been since they upset Michigan, put themselves on the national map. But anytime I see something like that, I definitely have an eye out on him. Unfortunately, I didn't get to cover him while he was in college. But like you said, seeing his tape, reads the game very well. Pretty good speed sideline to sideline. He's a little undersized to be an inside linebacker, but I think he's a really interesting prospect. My dark horse defensively, is it really a dark horse? I don't know. I kind of brought him up earlier, is Peyton Turner. And I think it's just because he was hurt last year. I think he had a lot of good flashes last year. He's really big. Like I said, if the Saints really wanted to get creative on 3rd down, which we've seen how creative Dennis Allen can be in some of those packages on 3rd down. With the size of Davenport and Turner, you could have those guys on an inside rush with Cam Jordan outside. There's a lot of things you can do with the raw skill and potential of Peyton Turner. And you had that raw skill and potential with Marcus Davenport too. And I just hope this coaching staff has picked up and learned a couple of things from that experiment. The experiment's not over for Davenport, but maybe learning to where you don't make the same mistakes that you did with Davenport with Turner outside of just not staying healthy. But I think Turner could end up being a really solid piece for this team, a guy who picks up maybe like 6 to 8 sacks, flies under the radar, but has a key piece of the defensive line and contributes week in and week out. That's my defensive dark horse. What about offense for you, Bob?
Before we go offense, I'd like to add a little bit to that defense. I think Davenport, I agree with you guys, you and Jordy. I think Davenport and Peyton Turner are both going to have big years, as should be the expectation. But another guy I'd like Saints fans to watch, One of the few weaknesses for this defense last year was lack of interior disruption on early downs. Now, like you said, and I've written about it too, their edge core is so deep and versatile that they could move a Peyton Turner, a Marcus Davenport, even a Cam Jordan inside, or to no passing, inside on passing downs. But it was lack of disruption on early downs. The free agent acquisition of Kentavious Street, I think, is going to pay big dividends to this offensive line. First of all, not enough people are talking about Passanio, but I think Street could be that kind of free agent addition that Passanio was last year, and Malcolm Brown was the year before that. He's not going to put up big stat lines, but he's going to help take the inside pressure at defensive tackle off of David Onyemata, who I think is going to have a big bounce back year too. And this Saints defensive line is just, the edge rush is what makes it go because of its depth and talent. But you look at interior, this defensive tackle position has the potential, again, that P word, to develop very, very quickly, especially when you add in, an athletic Jordan Jackson, the rookie 6th-round pick.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Shy Tuttle there as well. That's going to be a Saints legend for life because of what happened on Thanksgiving night. But he's still a guy that, listen, he produced his rookie year, not as many snaps last season, but still a guy that could come in and contribute. I think that the Saints' depth on their defensive line depth is actually a lot better than people may realize.
No doubt.
Back to the offense. There's a couple guys on offense that stick out in my head. I see one in the comments that I like, and it's a position of need still, in my opinion. But maybe Bob's got similar thoughts. Who is your dark horse offensively?
You can't call Chris Olave a dark horse, even though he's a rookie. I do expect big things from him, not only coming out of the gate, but throughout his career. Jordy made a great point about Trevor Penning and that offensive line. I look for a bounce back from them. My dark horse is a guy that's been there for a few years, Deonte Hardy. Deonte and Marquez Callaway both, they had their opportunities to be featured receivers by default because of Michael Thomas's injury last year. They both proved that they aren't number one wideouts. But with the addition of Olave, with the addition of Jarvis Landry, with a hopefully, fingers crossed, healthy Michael Thomas, a guy like Deonte Hardy, he can be the difference-making weapon late in a game or in a key situation. Because, first of all, Deonte is a way better route runner than people give him credit for. I realize he's on the smaller side. That's the main reason why he's never going to be a featured receiver. But now with those other offensive weapons, you can move a guy like Deonte around, take advantage of one-on-one matchups, and look to get him the ball more often in the open field. And there is no better player in the open field, than Deonte Hardy. Just ask any kick or punt return, unit in the league. And I'm really looking forward to the way Pete Carmichael uses Deonte on end arounds as a 3rd and 4th receiver. I mean, you're not going to double cover him. You're not going to put your best cover guys on him because there's so many other weapons. So how's your 4th cornerback? How's your safety, your 3rd safety going to do against a fast, precise guy like Deonte Hardy? I think he could make some big plays for the Saints in 2022.
Just to elaborate on that, imagine if the Saints go empty and they have a look where it involves Mike Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, Deonte Hardy, and Alvin Kamara. Think about how scary that's going to be. Somebody's going to get open in open space. I think Hardy is a great dark horse pick. I'm going to go to one that people might roast me a little bit for in the comments, because I thought he was playing some of the best football of his NFL career before he got hurt last year. And it's a guy that I still think, with his size and his ability that he showed in college, could be a good tight end for New Orleans. It's going to be Adam Troutman. And I think he's a dark horse because so many people have already – I know.
We're allowed to disagree. We're friends.
That's right. So many people have written him off already. I know Juwan Johnson's in the wings. That's another dark horse type of guy, just because receiver to tight end. He's a big dude. You saw it week 1 against Green Bay last year. But I think Troutman is a guy that people are going to forget about. And I just mentioned all those weapons if the Saints were to go empty. I think Troutman gets lost in that with how big of a body he is. Now, he's not going to be a Jimmy Graham type of player.
Right.
To an extent, I think that there were some unrealistic expectations for Troutman to do so. I could see this guy being much more of like a Ben Watson for New Orleans in like 15 and 16. The numbers didn't jump off the page at you, but when you looked at him, you said, wow, that might be borderline Pro Bowl, like 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. I could see Troutman developing into a player like that. Not this year, but I could definitely see him make a step in the right direction this year. That's why I'm going to call him a dark horse for the Saints offense.
And you know what? It's hard to disagree with your logic. I don't like Adam Troutman, the player. And the reason why is because I'm bitter. I'm among the bitter Saints fans from last year, that he's so gruesomely disappointed. But it's very clear to me, the Saints bypassed so many top tier tight ends, second level tight ends that would have been very, very affordable early in free agency. And it's very clear with the drafting of Olave and addition of Jarvis Landry that this team expects their passing attack to be featured around the wide receiver position and, of course, Alvin Kamara. Having said that, a guy like Adam Troutman, or if Juwan Johnson or Taysom Hill passes him on the depth chart, in other words, a tight end, be it Troutman or whomever, they could be a forgotten weapon. And Troutman is going to go into training camp as your starter because he's the best blocker of the bunch, and that's what this position needs right now, is better inline blocking. But Troutman is a guy, again, just like what I said with Deontay Hardy. You're not going to double cover Adam Troutman. You're not going to put his best, your best, cover guy on him. So the onus is on him to prove that he can beat opposing linebackers, to prove that he can beat a team's third safety. And I definitely can see a scenario where Troutman or whoever leads the tight end crew has 35 receptions for about 500 yards. Those aren't big stat numbers, but those 35 receptions and those 500 yards could come at huge times and key moments of football games.
That's exactly right. Well, I'm glad at least you agreed with some of my logic. Makes me feel somewhat smart tonight. All right, we've talked about the dark horses. Let's talk about training camp.
Yeah.
Big news was that Jameis Winston was cleared for training camp, and the Saints are optimistic that Michael Thomas will be cleared at some point for training camp. So this team's getting a little healthy. I know one of the comments earlier said that we are relying, as the Saints as a team, they're relying on guys to contribute heavily that are coming off of season-ending injuries just a year ago. Where are your levels of concern heading into training camp, and what are some of these guys that are coming off of season-ending injuries?
Look, fans, I see that concern. I do. But you got no choice. You lost so many stars to injuries last year, and you're not going to get rid of them just because they got hurt. And Jameis Winston, the knee injury, that's an isolated injury. He had been healthy for most of his career. Michael Thomas, I know he's missed the 26 of the last 33 regular season games, but it's not because of getting injured over and over and over again. It's one injury. He'd only missed one game in his first 4.5 years. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that if that ankle checks out. Same thing with Ryan Ramczyk. Same thing with Peyton Turner. I know people are down on Turner, and we even kind of have been on this show. But that one injury, 1 year. So there's no reason to think that this guy can't play because he's hurt all the time yet. And again, we're talking about first round draft choices. We're talking about multiple All-Pro performers. You need to rely on them. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on Winston's knee. All eyes are going to be on Thomas's ankle, Ramczyk's knee, Andrus Pete's whole body. But until these guys aren't healthy, they've proven that they're all among the better players, and in some cases the best players at their respective positions in the NFL.
I would tend to agree with everything that you said there. Before we wrap up for the night, I can't believe we've already gone an hour, our very first show. It feels good to be back. Looking at the defensive side of the football, a lot of people very excited about the defense, myself included, especially how good this team was last year. And it almost feels like they got better with some of the additions that they made. If there's one part of the defense that concerns you going into this season, or if there's a player that really needs to prove it to you in training camp, who is that player defensively?
It's the safety position in general, and specifically the communication in the secondary. Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May are athletic upgrades over what Marcus Williams and specifically Malcolm Jenkins were last year. But the thing that made those two guys great and that secondary great was their communication and their chemistry with the cornerbacks. That allowed the cornerbacks, Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo in particular, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, play a whole lot more aggressive in their underneath man coverage. And that makes a world of difference for a defense. The safety position will be fine, but when you change both starters, and plus you have Marcus May coming off of an injury, so we don't know how limited he's going to be in training camp yet. You expect some communication breakdowns early in the year. And if you recall, Malcolm Jenkins' first year back with the Saints, what was that, 2 or 3 years ago? I don't remember. They even, that whole secondary had some serious coverage breakdowns early in the year where people were questioning Marshawn Lattimore's credentials as a Pro Bowler, where people were questioning, Marcus Williams' range at free safety. As ridiculous as that sounds coming out of my mouth now, people were questioning the return of Malcolm Jenkins. So it's that kind of thing. I'm not worried about the secondary long term. Adebo, I think, is going to be a Pro Bowl talent. Marshawn Lattimore is, for my money, the best cover corner in the league. And Mathieu, Marcus May, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, even PJ Williams, they're all excellent in their roles. But the chemistry of the entire unit early in the year concerns me a little bit.
Understood. I also have to just point out that you said something nice about PJ Williams, which I think the guy's starting to grow on you a little bit more, because he's found a really good role. He's found a perfect role for him in New Orleans. And I'm a little surprised he only got a 1-year deal to come back. I figured New Orleans would maybe do a 2 or 3 year contract for him. But nonetheless, back in the black and gold. Well, as we wrap the podcast up, Bob, this is a show that you kind of bred yourself. You took a year off. You're back. What do you have to say to all these people that are just so excited? You reading the comments, just so excited to have you back on the airways full time.
Guys, and Scooby, I'm too old and tired to go 2 hours. Otherwise I'd love to. Listen, I know I speak for Brendan. I know I speak for Kyle Mosley too. Because Kyle Mosley started the original Bayou Blitz podcast with me. We're all humbled by the love and support that you guys have given us, and given us in our return. But I'm gonna ask another favor. Keep us growing. This is your show. This is your family. This is your project. Retweet us. Promote us, run us on your personal pages, Facebook pages, Twitter pages. Tell your friends and family about us. Help promote your show. We're going. Brendan and I, along with Kyle and John, they're going to be involved in this project too. We're going to do our best to give you top-notch content. I know we're going to give you top-notch guests every single week. I promise you we'll be there for you. And I have confidence that you'll be there for us too. Just help us grow this into a international power.
Hey, we're really excited for everything that Bob and I have in store, things that we've talked about behind the scenes. One thing that I really want to throw out there is kind of piggybacking off Bob is this is your guys' show. I mean, I said it a little bit ago that one of the biggest reasons and one of the biggest draws outside of working with Bob, of course, to come and do the show was this is the only podcast that I've seen, Saints-related wise, that has live content without going through it and running it strictly through Twitter, right? We get to be live on like 11, maybe like 7 to 10 or 11 different platforms, and all your comments come in, regardless if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and we get to interact with just a vast majority of all of you, and we love that. We want to see you guys comment more. We want to be able to run polls on Twitter, run polls on Facebook, and you guys tell us what you want to hear, what you want us to talk about, because what Bob and I might have in store, it might not be what you guys want to hear. Tell us what you want to hear, because trust me, we are very opinionated people. I might not be as intense as Bob does, but I am an opinionated person, and I've been so fortunate to cover this team for, oh man, I don't even want to count years, but I've covered this team for a long time. Bob has covered this team for a long time, and we just want to be able to produce content that you guys want to come back to every single week, and that's what's going to make this special. Bob's built a wonderful Bayou Blitz family. I'm just happy to be able to be adopted into it, and we're going to have a whole lot of fun being able to talk Saints football, maybe get a little off Saints football, and just have a good time once a week. And who knows? I mean, maybe multiple times a week. It depends how quick and fast you guys grow this thing. But we're really excited. As Bob said, we're going to have some great guests over the off season into the regular season. And training camp is here, so football's back.
Yeah, it really is. And, we're not only going to give you, video content through the Bayou Blitz every Wednesday. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to do, live pregame and halftime shows for you too. And we give you daily content in print. Well, print as far as internet goes. We will get our Bayou Blitz Bayou Blitz YouTube page, up and running for circulation. But certainly until then, follow us at the Saints News Network. Subscribe to the Saints News Network on YouTube, where you will get live notifications of any broadcast that we do. Even spur of the moment interviews. Kyle Mosley is famous for that. But we'll do more of those during the season as well. Our Bayou Blitz Facebook page. Saints News Network also has a Facebook page. And like I said, that helps us grow. That helps this show grow. And like I said, we'll not only give you video content, but we give you articles, as a news site every single day, about any breaking Saints news, along with editorials and any news columns every single day. That's a promise.
Right. A lot of times it's a lot of you writing those columns. So as you see on the screen, and if you're not watching and you're just listening, Bob, where can people follow you on the World Wide Web?
You can follow me on Twitter at BobbyR2613. I do have my Facebook page as well, Bob Rose. I funnel everything that I do, video and article related, through both of those pages, and also through the Saints News Network, Saints News Network, and Saints News Network on Facebook, and at Saints News over on Twitter, as well as I'll hand it over to you now for all the other technical aspects, Brendan.
Oh, man. Well, you can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, all BT Boylan. You see it on the screen. In terms of everything that we're doing, man, we're streaming on Facebook. We're streaming on Twitch. We're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on Twitter. I'm sure I'm missing other places we're streaming. We're going to get this set up on Spotify, so where if you miss it, you can listen next day as you're driving into work, because, man, that's what I do when I drive into work. I listen to podcasts. We're going to make sure you guys have so much accessibility to this. Obviously, Bob and I are super interactive on Twitter. So if you have any questions, just tweet us, DM us. I mean, I was on vacation last week, and one of you lovely people DM'd me for fantasy football advice. And guess what I did? I'm sitting on the beach having a good time talking fantasy football with one of you. We love being able to interact with you. We're going to do everything we can. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it takes to make sure you guys get your questions answered. And like I said, we're just going to have a good time this season. So, Bob, take us home.
Folks, again, I want to thank you for being part of the episode number 1 of the Bayou Blitz reboot. I think it's kind of cool to call it that right now. I won't continue to call it the Bayou Blitz reboot, but we're so excited to be back on the air. I want to thank our special guest tonight, Jordy Hultberg of the Jordy Holtberg Show, 103.7 and 104.1 The Game. Make sure you tune into his show every Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time. And like we just got done saying, you can catch Brendan and I every Wednesday night on your Bayou Blitz podcast, as well as our daily articles and up-to-date news information and anything else that's breaking New Orleans Saints related through the Saints News Network. We love you guys. Who dat?
All right, guys. We will see you next Wednesday. I have another great guest. Until then, who dat?